Good morning, boys and girls. It's week 3 and it's time to start our maths lessons for the week. This week, our learning topic is fractions, and today we're going to be talking about halves. Our learning intention, we are learning to recognise when objects, shapes or collections have been shared into halves. Our success criteria, I can use concrete materials to model half of an object. I can describe equal parts of a whole object. I can recognise that fractions refer to equal parts of a whole. I can recognise when object shapes have been shared into halves. So what are halves? When an object or a collection is divided into 2 equal parts, each part is called a half. Can you see I've got a collection of cars here? Half of the collection is 2 and the other half is 2. So I know I've divided them equally into 2 equal parts. Even though the shapes of the objects aren't the same, it's the number that counts. Look at the teddy bear. If I divided that teddy bear into half, each part is exactly the same. Look at these shapes. One half of these shapes have been coloured. One half of the rectangle, the circle, the triangle. Now look at the square. In both cases, even though they're different, they're both half, because if I folded them in half, they would be exactly the same shape. All right, boys and girls, it's your turn. You're going to shade one half of each of these shapes, but before you do it, on some of the shapes, you're going to have to divide them in half. Now, the first 3 shapes have been done for you. The second 3 shapes, you're going to have to draw a line down the middle to make each one a half. And then down the bottom of the page, you've got 3 rectangles. They're exactly the same size and shape, but can you come up with 3 different ways to divide them into half? Then once you've done that, shade one half of each shape. Now you can do this two ways. You can do this on the Jamboard, or you can print this off and use it as a worksheet. For this activity, boys and girls, we're going to learn how to find a half of a collection of objects. And this is very similar to what the work we were doing when we were looking about division, making equal groups. So this, if you like to, you can use counters to help you. In this case, if you're working at home, I would get out the number of counters to match the number of objects, and then you're going to divide it into 2 equal groups. If you're working on the Jamboard, you'll see that I've got counters at the side, and you can put the counters on there and move them into groups. So first of all, I have to get out 6 counters because there's 6 dogs. Now I'm going to put them into 2 groups. If I move them apart, I can see that a half of the 6 is 3. So now that's easy. I'm going to colour in half of the dogs. Now for the next question, I've got 4 soccer balls, and it says colour less than one half of the collection of soccer balls. So I can't colour half, I've got to colour less than a half. But first I better find out what half is. Well, I can see that a half is going to be 2 balls. Now, I can't colour 2, so that means I must be going to be only able to colour 1. Now, on my last question, I've got all of these oranges. Got 2, 4, 6, 8 oranges. Now, for this question, it's asking me to colour more than one half of this collection of oranges. So first of all, I've got to find half. I'm going to use my counters again. I'm going to put them into 2 equal groups, and I'm going to find that half is this, because half of 8 is 4. Now I'm going to colour 4 of them, but I'm allowed to colour a little bit more because I've got to colour more than half of the collection. Now be careful not to colour all 8 because that would be colouring the whole. Our second activity, we're going to be looking at halves again, but this time you have to decide whether the collection has been circled in half, more than a half, or less than a half for our first activity. Then down the bottom, you're going to tick whether the objects have been cut in half. So let's look at the first one up the top, number A. Look at the birds. There are 4 birds. Now, they've circled 2 of them. Is that half, more than a half, or less than a half? Then look at the tennis balls. Now that's a tricky one because you've got 3 tennis balls. And if I was going to divide my tennis balls in half, really, I'd have to have 1.5 tennis balls. So I know the answer is not half. But is it more than a half or less than a half? Tick the correct box. And the ones down the bottom, they're easy. Just tick the objects that have been cut in half. All right, once again, here's a picture of what you've got on the Jamboard. On the Jamboard, I've also got counters, and that would be really useful to use to help you with this activity, to divide these collections of objects into halves. So, or if you're working at home, you can still use it with different objects, whether it's pegs or coins or bits of Lego. That would work just as well. Now, my first collection is a collection of cars. Now, I've got to circle a half of them. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to count them up. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, I think half of them would go here. So I'm going to put my line here. Now let's see if I'm right. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this side and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that side. Both sides have got the same number of cars. So I've divided my group equally. So I can circle 5 cars. Now this one, you have to do a little bit of drawing. Here you're going to draw 6 bugs, but you're going to divide them into 2 groups. Half of them are going to go on the rock and half of them are going to go on the grass. So I'm going to put my little line in to remind me. So half of 6 is going to go there and half of 6 is going to go here. Now here's where I'd use my counters. If I get out 6 counters and I'd share them equally, half on the rock and half on the grass, and then I can draw my bugs in. You can just draw a ladybug, or if you don't want to draw a bug, you can just draw a circle and put 2 eyes on it. And our last task, we've got 3 marbles, but this is only one half of the collection. You've got to draw the other half. So here I'm going to put my line in. So this is one half. Can you draw, you've got to draw the same amount of marbles on this side to make the collection. So half is 3, you've got to draw the other half in. Right, for this time we're going to use a different strategy to find a half of the collection. This time we're going to be cutting up the pictures and gluing them down. So if you're working on paper, look in your maths folder for resource page 1, and it's got pictures of butterflies and frogs. And what you're going to do is you're going to count them up and cut them into 2 equal parts, or divide them into 2 equal parts and find half of each of the collection. So I'm going to do the first one for you. Here's a row of ducks. So the first thing I need to count up how many ducks there are all together. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 ducks. All right. Oh, okay. So I'm going to put half of 12. Now, if you're working on the Jamboard, you don't have to worry about cutting them up. I've already done it for you. You can just equally share the boxes, the pictures out between the 2 boxes. But for me, well, I'm going to say that half of 12, I think is 6. So I'm going to put 6 over here. And I think my other half is here. And I should have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm right. So there were 12 ducks all together. And there are 6 ducks in one half. Can you see how I've completed the sentences? So if you are working on the Jamboard, this is what you're going to have. You'll find, and you don't have to worry about cutting up pictures to glue and paste because I've already done it for you. You can just share the pictures equally between the 2 rectangles for the butterflies and the frogs. Then you count up the total number of butterflies and write there are that many butterflies altogether. Then count up how many butterflies are in one half and repeat the same process for the frogs. If you are working on a piece of paper, you can copy this sheet as a worksheet and then cut up the pictures and glue them on.